the word for the holy purple that's used in their rites. It appears in text. So,
And can we
mm,
go into like a specific people, let's say, or who these people we're talking about? I've heard about I heard about Scythian connection. I heard about this Asia Minor connection also at some other point or at the same time. I don't know. So if you can elaborate in who these people are, who is these people we're talking about that we're getting this tech or this first ideas that after becomes the mystery and the whole culture that we're talking about after in the Aegean and
we as civilized Greek-speaking peoples of the Mediterranean, we are getting our mystery right from a Scythian culture that lives in a world of constant change. They are mobile horse tribes that are known for their incredibly strict enforcement of certain social norms, certain customs. For example, get out of here. We don't want you around. So if we catch you here, we're going to kill you. And we may breed with you or eat you. But um, this is uh, this is the culture that produces the 12 bodyguards of the first Christ. So when Medea comes out Christing and spreading, so to speak, her ministry of Christing, she's spreading it around villages. She is creating Bacchic choruses by drugging people. When she begins to do this, she doesn't go by herself. She has a bodyguard of 12 Scythian women. And those 12 Scythian women are known for their martial skill as well as their knowledge of drugs. So all of that, again, notice how we're back to the drugs, right? Because that's the anchor, that's the real. That's what's really going on, their use of these drugs. And so this Scythian culture is a horse culture, it's mobile, and everything that the Greek speaking world is writing about these barbarians, because to the Greek speaking world, they are barbarians. They don't speak Greek. That qualifies you as a barbarian. So these barbarians who have this advanced knowledge of the drugs, whose leaders are these terribly despotic women who are performing acts of cruelty that ripple across the Mediterranean to keep everybody in control. And that scares the Greek speaking world. But this is the origin. This type of world where your queen is surrounded by her greatest intelligences is coming from an advanced culture that is encountering a, another advanced culture in the Greek speaking world that at the time is raising an umbrella. The Mycenaean Greek world is raising an umbrella over the Eastern Mediterranean so that civilizations can be planted. And they're only doing this because their oracles are going through these ceremonies where they are receiving instructions from the invisible beings that are around you that you can't see until you're initiated. So the these tribes of Amazonians who are raiding and hustling the Greek world, they're ultimately going to form the policing power of Athens. But for now, in the Bronze Age, they're just delivering to us a form of religion that is some kind of cult. And when I say cult, I mean cultus in Latin is the way that you grow your fields. It's the way that you use nature to produce.
Mhm.
The cult that performs the mystery initiation is using nature that is being absorbed through a non Greek speaking world. And that is marking the Greek response. It is creating, it's like fertilizer for Mother Greek herself to grow. So, yeah, it's gorgeous, absolutely.
Well, Ammon, if you don't mind, I would like to go. I know that besides your you're a philologist, you also studied a little bit, or not a little bit. You studied bacteriology, if I'm not mistaken, isn't it? Because of your research. So you think we can go a little bit about what do we know that because I understand that the drugs or the use of nature, let's say, which is we're talking about the same, um, it has is very prominent and it's very important to actually understand for they to understand what they were doing in their own culture. So do we know something about what actually they were using? Like, can we name animals, plants, concoctions, or whatever? Do we know something about that?
Yeah, and that's what's so unfortunate is that it's so broad. So when you say, what were they using
Mhm.
in the Mithraic rite that we have the liturgy of here that talks about what drugs to prepare? Fantastic. We've got a list. We've got a list of plants and of animal toxins right there that we're going to use. Okay. We're going to throw in a little gladiator's liver. Oh, God, that boosts the whole thing. You know what I mean? Ah, so yes, we have all of these substances, and they're all plants and animals that are living in the Mediterranean. They're the local species that they have used over ages. Now, here's what's really going to blow your mind.
Mhm.
Um, People who use these drugs and make these concoctions from plants and animal substances, they're using things that don't grow locally, right? So, colchicum, colchis is where Medea's from. And if you've discovered that plant, you know what it can be used for. It can be used for gout under certain circumstances, right? Or you can use it to induce a mania. You can kill with it. There's all sorts of things you can do with it. That's a local drug that she was pioneering. She was known to have pioneered, her family was known to have pioneered aconite, which is terribly, terribly poisonous. It's lethal. There's no reason you're using aconite except to induce like death states. That's why they call it a thanasimon. It's a death inducer. Terrible drug, right? But they're using it locally. But here's the strange thing that'll blow your mind. She's using drugs that are not local. Drugs that you have to get way across the Mediterranean. So the craft of the Bronze Age medical priestly witchcraft, if you want to call it that, it's at such a high level that you and I, the common people, can't do this kind of stuff. And you and I, looking back on it, can we replicate it? We have tons of lists of the different drugs and what counteracts what and what's used by whom.
Mhm.
Right?
And this and this
Um,
but this kept going after also in history, I guess. Like they
Yeah,
were actually going and reviewing what they were doing, and they were using that knowledge hundreds of years after. You know what I mean? It
correct.
recreated a bit. Can you
Correct.
elaborate a bit on that connection? That like what we know, I guess, is because of text that was written after. That's what I was
Right.
saying before, isn't it?
Right.
Hmm.
Um, what drugs can you use to influence a person's thinking? These are the drugs that the physicians later, as you said, they're writing later. Physicians later, Hippocratic physicians later, are sitting around writing about Dioscorides, Roman, the opening of the Roman Empire. Oh, he's sitting around, he's collecting works, he's getting all of his recipes together to show you what goes with what. He's building a theory of how these drugs are interacting. All of that is built upon that earlier technology that we just see the tip of the iceberg of when we look at the purple production in the Mycenaean workshops. They're doing the same thing. They have to come up with words for it. So they are using drugs, for example, that puts you into a different mental state. I have texts that I'm bringing just tomorrow about that. They put you into a completely different mental state. What kind of mental state do you want to be put into? It depends on the drugs that are being used and the way that they're applied. These are not clinics where you walk in and the doctor gives you a prescription and you go and get it. No, this is where you are treated on site using a craft that's far more complex than you can imagine. Just think of it this way. If they are working on changing the human body into a vessel for different types of salvific substances, certain types of drugs that will bring you what they call a salvation. Remember the gospel? Gospel, evangelia, is a word that means the efficacy of the drug you are applying. As a physician, what is that drug combo's gospel? It is salvation. So we're looking at the world in a way that once you start studying how they're using these drugs and its history, um, everything else that we perceive seems absurd. Let me give you one example.
Hmm.
People, when I was in school and coming up through graduate school, the big debate was: are the oracles getting high? And the overwhelming majority said no, but they are recordedly performing these specific actions that look like they're some kind of mind altering, drug induced situation. So we can't ignore them. The very fact that they were debating that 20 years ago, 30 years ago, the very fact that they were debating that is a joke. Within 5 minutes, I can show any classicist texts that show how they were using the drugs in the rites. We have this evidence there. It's only because we've come through monism that we've rejected this evidence as evidence. So it's political too. It gets very political. The censorship of what's out there. Yeah.
Hmm. Okay, so I think as we were tracing the cult, this figure appears um, because you were talking about Bacchic um, cult. So I guess we're talking about Bacchus, isn't it? There is that seems to be like these misconceptions of like or misconception all the time. Like you talk about Baco here in Spanish. And yeah, obviously they will tell you, okay, yeah, this is the god of wine of the Romans. So obviously it's not Roman time because we're talking about the Bacchic cult that is coming like way before, isn't it? So what I wanted to ask you is about who is this figures of Bacchus, and if we can get into what the text says about the actual influence of this concept um, happens, like practically, like that there were, what is this Bacchic thing? What is this?
Yeah, and interestingly, the Bacchic cult starts with women. Bacchic cult is an ecstatic state that can be entered by a woman who is following a very specific cult regimen and uses very specific cult tools. So we know, in this case, we know that the Bacchants, who are women, originally women, remember we talked about the Scythians. Some of these tribes are just completely women, right? Um, this is not the same world that you see in the integrated world that we live in. So these Bacchic women are able to enter into an ecstatic state that is the possession of Bacchus, right? We don't know what Bacchus is. Right? Let me just say that one more time. We don't know what Bacchus is. We can guess at what it means to be Bacchic, but we don't even know where the word comes from. So, um, to the Greeks, this foreign nature of the Bacchic cult was a real problem in a lot of Greek city states. They didn't want to absorb this worship. This is coming from these women, these Maenads in the East, and they are using these dildos and snakes to do something that will cause havoc and rain, confusion, and slaughter on our little cities. It's not good. So, this is the Bronze Age Bacchic worship that we see that ultimately develops into the very pacified and civilized masculine and feminine worship of Dionysus. Yes, as the god of wine, as the god of wine. That's what it becomes. And we get the stage in Athens through that worship. But people have to realize the cult, from its origin, is really a place. It's a place that a woman can project herself in order to be filled with the God. And the God causes her to do things like kill people. Right? Kill people. Remember where these cults are coming from? People wash up on our shore. Hey, it's their fault, right? Let's play with them. Let's use some drugs on them, right? This is the society that creates Bacchus. The Greeks have a word, Baccheo, Baccheo, and it contains that old Mycenaean digamma. And it means to be in the Bacchic maniacal murderous state.
Ammon, do we know? Do you have some, do we have some sources that they will talk about, like to give an example when, because okay, this comes from Bronze Age, but after this was read from this new culture, after it's coming from there, and it becomes something that a bit different. But what keep, what the cult will keep? How will you look at the influence of this Bacchus after?
You'd have to see two things, both of them in Athens, you see the development of the stage and theater. That's one place. The other is the Eleusinian mysteries. The mysteries that we celebrate only come to us through this Bacchic procession. In other words, we don't go to any sacred ground unless it's been processed by Bacchus himself. That is the core of the monadic mania. So, where do we see this? We see it in the productions of the stage in Athens. You see it in Athens. Euripides is borrowing from earlier records. Euripides is quoting. Euripides is digging. Euripides is so into it that his mother is a root collector. And everybody knows from the Greek, everybody knows that these women are fucking nuts. Okay? These women are nuts. They come from a tradition where they hunt people that they mate with. Right? This is where the Bacchic monadic power that creates the first mystery, that is the first mystery, right? Medea, the first Christ, is living in that world of the first mystery, of generating the Bacchic furor. She's actually doing it with actual drugs.
Mhm. And when it comes to this new world after, how can we see how will the whole culture around it will look like? I guess it will be a bit different, not the same as in you know what I mean? Like as in that early stage. Now it becomes Dionysus, it becomes this other kind of rite, but it will be the same because you said that it will be like men involved also, not just women. They embrace this thing and they create what?
They create the absolute mongrelization, the ill breeding of two pea plants that shouldn't have been with each other. They take the offspring, Christianity, and they create the Bacchic power within the Christian ill-bred psychic image producer, which is the church. The church ultimately took, and they did the same thing with Greek. They did the same thing with Mother Greek. They took the language and they corrupted her.
Mhm.
They took away her flexibility. You're no longer actively, as you live, pulling new vocabulary out of the air. You're no longer advancing in your ability to use the logos to explain your surroundings. You're not able to do that anymore. The church took Bacchus and turned Bacchus into exactly what you have now, which is what? It is not, it is anything but the education, training, and preparation of women to be able to meet their peak, to be able to protect us as guardians of the virgin voice. They're the ones who are able to protect us. They have to be potentiated. Doing this to women is how you elevate your society. Watch what happens to them. Watch what they do. It's people, they think this stuff is myth. It's not, people. I've read the doctors who are astounded at the use of the drugs in the different cults, right? Please, people, the most popular physician of all time, Galen, right? Galen, he knows one of these priestesses that supplies him with the drugs that are so phenomenally powerful in his medical practice in Rome. He buys 20,000 fucking pills.
Can you talk a bit to us about that person, Galen?
Yeah, Galen, second century physician of Marcus Aurelius, the emperor of Rome. He's giving Marcus, we have documents, his own documents, where he talks about giving Marcus Aurelius the famous theriac. He says it's making him better, it's making him bigger. Oh, his dependence upon opium is getting a little bit too high. Galen doesn't like that. But we see him giving Marcus Aurelius the theriac. Galen, who is the highest physician in the Roman Empire. There's nobody else who has more authority than he does. He's like a surgeon general, except way more. And he comes out and he says, look, we're getting this medicine from Lemnos. And the priestess there that provides it, she is using this technique that goes back to the origin. It goes back to the first oracles. What are they doing on Lemnos with what they call the Limnian earth and how they're processing it? They're making medicine for the entire Mediterranean through oracular practice. That is, through Bacchic worship. Galen recognizes the knowledge that is locked in the craft of the oracle, and he goes and exploits it by buying 20,000 of these pills to take back to Rome to put in his prescriptions. So the the impulse toward freedom and liberty is Bacchus. That drive to want to be a part of that natural world that wants you to survive. That is the power of the Bacchic frenzy. It gives you the freedom to pursue what you need to pursue in order to break that barrier, in order to go like they were doing at Eleusis, where everybody in the Mediterranean is coming for their initiation, how to be prepped. And this is the most important time of your life, right? It's imagine if instead of people going on a trek to Mecca, imagine if they went there and came back with a permanent transformation in the neuropeptides in their brain and the way that their brain was working so that their bodies could do X, Y, and Z, so that their perception was opened X, Y, and Z.
De nuevo, nosotros no somos historiadores, no pretendo hacer un documental que trate de, de nosotros contar una historia, sino que estamos haciendo de puente. Esa es la idea, nosotros somos el puente para mostrar un periodo histórico. Yo no sé qué nos podemos encontrar, no sé qué puede pasar.
Just like a small golden nugget, like from your background that you can understand like how a peptide will work in your head, what in your brain, what would you think that they were doing? Like, can you give us like in a nutshell, like what actually this kind of drug will activate or not activate, or how this works in your brain? Like, it's like an LSD. What kind of thing are you feeling? We
Yeah,
cannot.
so you've got neuropeptides in your brain that act as communicators. And these communicators influence things like your growth, your sexuality. They are involved in this complex chemical dance that the cult has tapped into. The cult is itself performing the actions of these neuropeptides on its own people. We can now regulate growth. We can regulate puberty. I can take your puberty and put it into a constant state of non-regression. What the hell is that? That's where you will constantly be in a state of development and never come out of it. You will never reach development. Do you understand me? How can we do that? There are a gazillion substances, including all of these toxins that we now know influence hormones and hormone receptors.
Like,
They are
can we
influencing
identify
the
them?
human brain.
Sorry. Can we identify it like that? Like
Of
what
course
kind
we
of?
can.
Hmm?
Of course we can. Viper venom activates the same pathways that prolactin does. So the viper venom, when given to a female, can induce the production of milk. And they're already noticing this. They're already talking about different types of milk being produced by the venom, right? Depending on the development of the person, right? So, this science that they're doing is just as advanced as what I was doing at the University of Arizona when I was taking brain slices of sheep to identify the anti-gonadotropic peptide. It's decapeptide, one of these peptides that's active in the brain. We're trying to identify what it does. It seems to inhibit pubertal onset. So if we can take that chemical, the idea was in the lab, if we can take that chemical and introduce it to children who are prematurely entering puberty, we can delay that puberty. In other words, I've spent time in a lab where all we were doing was figuring out the architecture of when to start puberty. And if you have the correct peptides, you can do that. It's not a difficulty. It is just nature. You are the base. The cult will show you you are just the base. You must be potentiated. And you're only going to get there through her. Okay? So you do what you want with whatever your belief or your faith is. You're never going to find the salvation of the gospel if you don't have her, the Savior. Right? Soltera. She's the Savior. Yeah. Oh, God.
Fuck. That was just fucking amazing.